Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you today at our local digital decoration 2-year anniversary event. I am Mei Liao, head of the local digital collaboration unit. We have a great lineup today with Simon Clarke, Minister for Regional Growth and Local Government, as our keynote speaker, followed by our own Chief Digital Officer, Paul Motby, then a fabulous showcase from councils telling us about how they've embedded the decoration principles. And finally, we will wrap up with getting your opinions on maximizing the potential of the decoration. Next slide, please. I was working at Southwark Council when the decoration launched in July 2018, and having the decoration principles and the ambition stated so clearly and supported by so many councils was of great help to me when making the case for digital transformation and supporting the council in delivering great services. So I know firsthand how hard it is to make those fix the plumbing changes, but I've also seen the power of the decoration, the support it can bring, and what can be achieved as part of the strong and growing local digital movement. The decoration anniversary also coincides with my first full year in the team, and I feel privileged that I get to see the collective work of councils nationally, and I'm continually amazed at the hard work and ingenuity of local council officers. This has been especially evident during COVID-19, where we saw councils build and launch new digital services overnight to help vulnerable people. COVID has also shown what's possible, and the high energy, increased pace of delivery, openness to sharing and working together can only stand us in good stead for future challenges ahead. To tell us more about the achievements in the last 2 years and exciting news on our COVID round of funding, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker and our Minister, Simon Clarke, Minister for Regional Growth and Local Government.
Thank you, Mayan, for that introduction, and a big thank you to everyone from across local government who joins us here today. This month, we're celebrating the second anniversary of the local digital declaration and the achievements made possible by the hard work and innovation shown by councils throughout the country. Since I became the Minister for Regional Growth and Local Government in February, I've been immensely impressed and energised by the commitment and enthusiasm of the local digital movement. I know how hard the past few months have been for the entire sector, and I want to start off by saying thank you to each and every one of you. The unwavering help and support that you've provided to your communities during these unprecedented times has been truly extraordinary. And I've seen firsthand how councillors and officers alike have risen to the immense challenges COVID-19 has created, rapidly building services, harnessing the power of digital technology, and utilising relationships with community groups and charities to support the most vulnerable in our society. With government backing, these innovations have helped us to shield successfully 2.2 million clinically vulnerable people and to deliver 4 million food boxes across England since the beginning of this pandemic. And as we shift to the next phase of this recovery, the use of digital tools is more important than ever. The NHS test and trace system is a key example of how data and technology are playing a leading role in keeping the coronavirus under control. It is the mechanism through which we can ensure that local lockdowns are isolated and tackled in a targeted way. And it's only through fully utilising this digital technology and data that we'll be able to adapt to the new normal while ensuring that the heavy sacrifice of the public during this lockdown hasn't been wasted. I know that the projects emerging from council digital teams can and will make even more of a difference. The local digital community has gathered great momentum in the last 2 years, with over 220 councils and public sector organisations pledging their commitment to provide better public services for their residents. However, for digital transformation to be successful, it has to permeate every part of an organisation, which is why the 5 principles outlined in the local digital declaration are aimed at achieving not just the technology shifts, but also cultural shifts throughout the sector. It's enabled digital to be embedded at the heart of many councils, while great strides have also been made in pushing it towards the centre of decision making too. Today, we'll be hearing some great examples of this from Cambridgeshire, Dorset, Blackburn and Stockport councils. I want to amplify this great work taking place on a local scale and embed it into the wider local government sector. Collaboration is vital in helping to make this happen. And in government, we will continue to play our part in removing some of the barriers to effective collaboration and information sharing for councils, including finance, support and training. As part of our mission to support the local digital movement, we've delivered free training to over 1,000 council staff with the hope of building digital delivery and leadership capacity across the sector. These courses have already helped councils to deliver the digital projects outlined in their declaration commitments, while adopting agile methodologies and techniques. As declaration signatories, I know many of you have benefited from this initiative and are helping to bring about a new wave of delivery managers, product managers, business analysts, and user researchers as a result. The declaration has been described as reinvigorating, providing a sense of mission and confidence. And this is true for our local digital fund as well, which has over 100 councils working together on 23 collaborative projects to deliver common solutions to common problems. Some really exciting work is taking place with support from this fund. Buckinghamshire County Council, in partnership with Ada and Worthing, Leeds and Croydon, are combining their digital thinking to address challenges around community-based information. Their project is testing a common data standard for community-based services and examining how this data can be maintained. This will help to transform the provision of information to residents, helping them to see and understand the wide range of support services in their area beyond those provided by the council. Suffolk County Council is also leading a project in partnership with Cambridgeshire and Norfolk to explore the use of predictive modelling in children's social care. The team is testing their findings in understanding the future demands for children's social care and how they can improve children's outcomes through the use of better data. All of this work can be shared with other councils to make sure we all benefit from streamlined and improved digital services. However, I'm acutely aware that as we celebrate these successes, none of this technological innovation is possible without sustained funding for the local government sector. And I don't underestimate the scale of the task before local government from parish, town, district, city and county councils as we embark on the biggest work of reconstruction since 1945. It's why we're giving councils unprecedented support during the pandemic with a £4.3 billion package, including £3.7 billion for unring-fenced funding and a £600 million infection control fund to tackle the spending pressures that local authorities are facing. In supporting councils to rise to the challenges before them, it's important that digital innovation is seen not just as a means through which councils streamline and improve the services they can offer, but more widely, a smart and effective way of reducing costs and inefficiencies. In fact, we've heard how many councils are turning to digital technology to find innovative solutions for our post-coronavirus renewal, and this is exactly what inspired us to launch the COVID-19 Challenge. When I was speaking at the LGA annual conference earlier this month, I encouraged as many councils as possible to bid for the local digital COVID-19 Challenge, but also to support a wider shift in the way services are designed and delivered. We invited applications in 3 thematic areas: data and reporting, community and engagement, and developing new working practices. We've had an overwhelming response with 125 applications from 94 councils, further highlighting the digital creativity and innovative approach that councils are using to tackle today's biggest challenges. Today, I'm excited to announce the 11 digital projects will be asked to develop digital solutions to help communities and councils across the country respond to the challenges that coronavirus has created. We've learned so much together from responding to COVID-19, and these projects will utilise this knowledge to improve efficiency in councils and enhance services for residents and local communities. Central Bedfordshire Council, for example, will be improving how information flows between councils and voluntary community services, and how best to ensure those processes are secure and reliable so that residents can get the right support when they need it. South Gloucestershire and 9 other local authorities will be developing a practical playbook with approaches and tools that councils can use to hold effective and engaging online public meetings and consultations. This will boost participation and encourage what I hope will be genuine conversation with diverse communities. I look forward to following each project team throughout their 2-month journey as they strive to create something tangible and reusable for their fellow councils. You can follow their work too. Progress and outputs will be shared on Local Digital's website. As we've heard today, there are brilliant examples across the sector of how councils are redesigning and redefining what they do and delivering better services as a result. But there is always more to do. I want to see how the declaration can be taken a step further. So later today, the Local Digital team are going to share some ideas with you. I want you to be advocates at your council, and I want to hear how we can help you further champion the principles of the Local Digital mission. As you know, the Local Digital Declaration is not a set of rules. It's about committing to a new way of working together, using whatever resources you have. With that in mind, we want your ideas and opinions to shape this next phase of the declaration, to maximise its potential and to recommit to the principles. I want to support you in being ambitious, innovative and bold. Please be assured you have my full backing, and I'll be writing to your chief executives to express my support. I want to celebrate the great successes of local government, but I also want to hear how we can best encourage this kind of innovation right across the sector. And I look forward to seeing the inventive plans you have put forward to now being turned from vision into reality over the coming weeks. While this is only the second year of the declaration, I am pleased that we're maintaining this momentum and laying the foundations for its continued growth at this critical time, not just for local government, but for the whole country. Let's continue driving ambition, maturity and capacity in local government to deliver a new generation of services that better protect our citizens and also help improve their lives. That's what lies ahead. Digital is the future. Let's seize it together. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Simon. And what we're going to do is now shift to questions for yourself. So just to kind of start off with, what do you think we can achieve in the next, or what do you think we can hope to achieve in the next year?
Well, I think this is a extraordinary moment, clearly. I mean, we've seen over the course of the last few months the centrality of good digital service provision. All our lives have been reshaped by it. I don't know about all of you, but I'm certain that you will have spent a disproportionate amount of time on Zoom and Teams calls and various other tools as well. And that, I think, has reshaped a lot of our expectation and understanding of what it is that we can do online and the extent to which it is indeed possible to really refine our service offer. But more broadly, I think this is the way of the future anyway. I mean, what we're seeing now has accelerated existing trends, but it is really important that we have digital not just as an afterthought in what government does, both local and national, but really at the heart of it, whether that be interrogating data, whether it be maximising transparency, whether it be including communities who can sometimes be isolated. These are all attributes of the work of digital, which I think we ought to be pressing ahead with regardless of the coronavirus situation. This is what good government should look like in the 2020s. And so I'm hugely ambitious and very much in the market to, for good ideas and shareable best practice.
And how have you kind of found it yourself from, this kind of like new ways of working, and like whether it be like working from home or as you mentioned, lots of like video calls, etc. How have you personally found?
Well, I think it's been less isolating than it would have been at any time prior to now. Obviously, unfortunately, I've been able to come back into London with Parliament returning. So in some ways, the structure of my life has returned more to normal. And clearly that will be true for more and more colleagues on this call as we slowly start to return to work. But the experience, I think, has been reasonably positive. I do think that in terms of sort of the seamlessness of the transition from one way of working to another, it's been very effective, and I certainly don't feel that I've lost productivity. Indeed, it's arguable we've gained some productivity by being able to do more online. So I'm pretty bullish about it, really, whilst recognising that There are some situations where obviously there's still no substitute for face-to-face, but it is beyond doubt, technology has stood up remarkably well. It is the great success story of the last few months, the way in which our internet capacity hasn't faltered, the way in which these tools have gone from relatively marginal use to absolutely everyone on them. It's been great for business, it's been great for government, it's been great for families, and so I think on every level it's passed the test.
Thank you, Simon. And just if you haven't found where you can ask questions, you can use the Q&A function in Teams to ask Simon questions. So please feel free to kind of type in and I'll read the questions out. And Simon, in terms of central government's priorities and focus, can you give us an understanding of what that's likely to look like?
Well, a key element of our focus is obviously on the ongoing situation and managing that. So in terms of my own portfolio, a lot of time over the last few weeks and months has been spent on making sure that the needs of the sector are met. We're obviously pleased that we've got the 3.7 billion now of unring-fenced funding and the income guarantee, which I think will really prove its worth as we finally sort of crystallise some of the losses which have come from things like sales fees and charges. There's no question that getting that package in place, making sure that the sector is still in a position to respond to what is an ongoing situation, has been a major challenge, and we're really pleased to have negotiated a good deal. Beyond that, there's obviously the wider picture. We've got a cross-government spending review coming up in the autumn. It's making sure that we fight for a deal for local government as part of that, and that work has already started. There's wider reform to local government, and we're looking at the devolution white paper, which will be published in the autumn. That again is about making sure that, if digital is one strand of modernisation, looking at the most effective structures for local government is another. There is a tremendous amount of work going on to make sure that our department, which has been really flung into the limelight by this crisis, delivers on a whole range of metrics. So there's high street support, there's the Towns Fund, 3.6 billion for regeneration and renewal, and that again will be a big part of our wider coronavirus response and recovery effort. And then the rest of the department too. So Luke Hall working hard with his team on homelessness, which has been one of the great successes of the last few months, helping to massively reduce the number of people who are sleeping rough. And Chris Pincher pressing on with housing reform, making sure that we liberalise the planning system and that we build the homes we need where we need them. So it's all it's a lot going on. It's a lot involving us in the wider sense of the local government family. I think we should be excited by that. It's a good challenge to have.
Thank you, Simon. I think that's all the questions I can see at the moment. So is there anything else you would like to cover off before we finish?
No, well, only really just to say a big thank you to everyone who submitted applications for this latest fund. I think the team at our end, and thank you to you and your team, by the way, for your work in appraising them. But I think everyone was genuinely impressed with the quality of the bids that we received, and we're delighted to have been able to take so many of them forward. As I say, I think this is an area of policy which transcends the temporary challenge of coronavirus. I think it is about making sure that government is as responsive and effective as it can be. You all have massive roles to play in that within your authority, and I really am serious about making sure that every chief executive and council leader gets that message, if you like, that this is no longer a tick box exercise, which you need to sort of show some willing towards it. I think it goes to the heart of whether you're a good council or not, whether you're thinking imaginatively about what you can do better or differently by making use of new online tools. So thank you, good luck for the next few months, and please do know that we've got your back here at MHCLG, and we're determined to make sure that the sector succeeds over the years ahead, which are going to be exciting and challenging. But for now, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Simon. So good to have you.
Thank you.
So up next, we've got Paul Motby, who's the Chief Digital Officer at NHCLG. Paul, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mayan, and thank you, Minister. Really timely, I think, to have this discussion around the back of the declaration and the COVID projects. As you say, it comes on the back of a pretty grueling few months for many of us, but this one where this funny word digital has really moved up the agenda in many of our organisations. And in some ways, you could say we've made some years of progress in really a matter of weeks. The thing that's close to my heart in this is that we make sure that this declaration anniversary is an opportunity for us to help you embed the progress within councils of these changes. I'm thinking back to when we first got a bunch of digital leads together from across local government, and we were saying, how do we get more clarity on what good likes? How do we do the difficult stuff, the hashtag fix the plumbing? And how do we do our bit in central government, shoulder to shoulder with colleagues in local government to help this whole thing move forward? We remember right back in those first days, we wrote the declaration. It's probably about 100 or so folks writing the declaration almost as a wiki in a Google Doc. And it was a little thing, but for me, it was like a signal of this being a different sort of relationship where we can do it. We see ourselves as part of the reforming community in the sector, just one with a different role to play. And I know from my own experience within a large bureaucracy for many years, is making progress can be tough. Reform can actually be pretty lonely. So the declaration, the community around it, is just another way for us to be able to not just do the sharing and the reuse, but as the Minister said, really to have each other's backs and to lift the eyes of others in the organisation who are yet to see perhaps some of those opportunities. I think, when we think about what does the declaration mean, well, there's a big thing here about us working in a more agile way. As the PM said the other day, it's stop thinking of COVID as something that makes it impossible to do things, and look at how quickly we have all moved. In our team, we pivoted some folks into the work on shielding, getting the data to councils in a way that would have felt impossible just a matter of weeks or months previously. But we saw in the COVID wiki that Mayan's team put together some great examples from across local government of people showing what they've done, sharing where they can share, whether that's just relatively if you like smaller things, but this is how you put a message about COVID onto the website. Through to I think that particularly struck me was Adrian Worthing's example of their volunteering system. It's something that stayed with me. I think it was within just a couple of days they managed to spin that service up. And this thing about thinking about our capability, our capacity, how do we work on that is like actually open working, experimentation is part of this. It helps build us trust. I look at what Hackney have done and their the digital lab and the amount of working in the open that organisation is doing, where they've gone for this in a big way. But it isn't just the big city councils, and I think we see those changes across the piece. I think we've got Katz is going to talk about some of this in a moment from Cambridgeshire. Very different from Hackney, obviously, but nonetheless some fabulous work going on in that place. And then, so I suppose finally, just before we finish this bit up, it's just about how do we become safe and secure when it's an exciting world, there's so much technology, new things to purchase, lots of different things going on. It's just the thing about us all being clear that we need to think about the companies that are providing this, where they're coming from, thinking about our supply chain, and again, us doing the right bit in central government to make sure we've got the right protocols, the standards that help councils have at least that minimum level of security, many of which will be far beyond that. So these things are the values of the local digital declaration: redesigning services around the needs of people using them, breaking the dependence on inflexible and expensive technology, designing safe, secure, useful ways of sharing information, demonstrating digital leadership, and embedding an open culture. This is what we had. It's as the Minister said, it's not a set of rules, it's a set of principles for how we do our work and how we work together to do that. So this is a tough time. Nonetheless, it remains a tough time, but it's also an exciting time. And I think some of the demonstration projects and things that we've got later on through this morning are some really great examples, and I hope you enjoy them. So I'm passing back over to Mayan, but thank you.
Thanks, Paul. So we now have a great selection of showcases from 4 different councils. So we're going to start off with Kat Sexton from Cambridgeshire County Council.
Hello, I am Kat Sexton, as you say, and I'm a digital services architect from LGSS Digital, and I lead the digital programme at Cambridgeshire County Council. So I'm going to talk to you today about the impact of the local digital declaration has had on my team and also Cambridgeshire County Council. Next slide. So before we get into that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what LGSS Digital does. We're a shared service working for Cambridgeshire County Council and also Northamptonshire and Milton Keynes, and we work with them to design and deliver end-to-end digital services. So we use human-centred design techniques to research problems and design solutions. We use Agile to deliver digital solutions, and we build digital solutions using our digital platform, which I'll talk more about in a minute. So first, we'll talk about redesigning services around the needs of people using them, a really important part of the MHCLG declaration. So it was a really key milestone for us as a result of designing the declaration that was creating our own design process based on the GDS service manual and also the service design standards. So we created this design process along with lots of tools and techniques and methods for helping teams really get to the bottom of the problems they're trying to solve rather than symptoms, and research those problems and creatively and collaboratively create ideas to solve them. So the method really encourages us to prototype ideas and test with real users, fail early, gain feedback and iterate, rather than spending lots of money on a solution that may or may not work. So the declaration has helped us gain traction when doing this kind of work with the councils we work with, and the training that they provide has really helped us level up skills, not only within our team, but with the services themselves. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the fixing the plumbing and the building block approach. So LGSS Digital has been modelling the fixing the plumbing principle by helping break our dependence on inflexible and expensive technology. So we've been creating reusable building blocks, which is on the next slide, in a low-code platform, and procuring blocks, which has not only enabled us to provide human-centred solutions for Cambridgeshire, but across all of the LGSS partners. So we really do take that capability approach. We try to build once and then we reuse it. So the point of that is that we get better and faster with each application that we build, and we're learning and improving all the time. So an example of that is the user management layer that you can see there. And we build once the ability to have user accounts and the role management and stuff, and then we can put that in each digital service that we create. So an example of this is Badgeable. So we created an end-to-end digital blue badge service that is a great example of how we've used multiple building blocks, which have been reused not only across authorities, but for other digital services. So, for example, we use an integration to an automated identification provider so that people don't have to provide proof of who they are. And then we can use that for each of our digital services that we use. Another example is our recycling centre e-permits application, which again provides the end-to-end digital service from the online content, the application form, all the way to the back office management system, and then the app used by the site staff. So this service was built using a lot of the technology that we created when we built Badgeable, but we also created new building blocks for this, so such as the app, which the site staff used to validate permits, which then we could reuse for other services that require permits. It's kind of leading on to how we really did, the digital team, help with the COVID response in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. So in many parts of the country, the digital team really could showcase what they could do as part of the response effort. And our building block approach really did help us to support that response in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. So we used a lot of our capability that we'd already built in our other digital services, and we built a system for the hub to manage the data on our shielded population and record our proactive contact that we made to all of those people to make sure that they were safe and well. And we built this in just a week, well designed and built it in just a week. And since then we could iterate on it in a environment. So we were always getting feedback from the users about what was working, what wasn't. We were iterating on it, we were improving the usability of it, and also as part of that we integrated it with the Gov Notify service so that we could automatically email and text people who would prefer to be contacted in that way. And then, like I say again, we now have that Gov Notify service, which is another reusable building block which we can then use in other services going forward as well. So moving on to digital leadership and culture, again, this is something that has really been helped by the declaration. We've been working with Cambridgeshire County Council and system partners and real users to create the conditions for genuine organisational transformation to happen all around the needs of the users. So we run collaborative problem solving events with services, we bring service professionals into the mix, not just so that they can share their knowledge, but so they can play an active role in the design process too. So we found this to be exceptionally powerful. We don't just want to keep these kinds of skills within the digital team. We really want to kind of get that out into the wider council. So last year we conducted a lot of user research with families by training service professionals in user research. And I remember one person from the Children's Commissioning Service being so moved by the experience, as it really shone a light on the fact that commissioners don't really spend a lot of time with the people that they're commissioning services for. So you can see the secret source poster there was for that project. And we run open sessions for staff, so show and tells, training sessions, where they really just help people think differently about how to approach problem solving and just trying to create that culture of designing services from the outside in. And we've also brought things like the concept of design sprints to the council. So the picture at the bottom there was taken on the first day of a week-long design sprint last year about mental health, and that was with people from all over the system, and there were service users there as well. And lastly, culture. So we know that our work in the declaration is making a big difference to the culture of Cambridgeshire County Council. Not all of a sudden, but gradually it really is making a difference. So people start approaching us because they want to truly understand their users and design services that work for them rather than jump to solutions. The picture on this slide was taken for a digital solution that we were prototyping to help people with learning disabilities find technology that might help them become more independent. So we ran lots, we co-designed it, co-created it, we prototyped it and then tested it with a lot of real people, and at the moment it's in development. So the coronavirus pandemic as well has been an incredible accelerator, as you've all said, showcasing digital ways of working, designing minimal digital services, testing them in a live environment, iterating them based on user feedback, and the pace in which we were able to design and develop digital services and solutions during, especially in the early weeks, was just staggering. And I think all of Cambridgeshire really learned a lot at that time. So in the last couple of years, we've been getting more involved in more strategic pieces of work too, where the council's been striving to work better as a system and joining with more public sector partners to try and put our users at the heart. So as it's in the digital declaration, we really try to lead by example, working in the open, sharing stories about the work that we've done and what we've learnt. We're working collaboratively with people inside and outside the organisation, and we really just try and give people that experience of learning by doing in the design process. So working in and embracing the ambiguity. And we sort of challenge that perception that people don't like change by creating safe spaces and simple tools for people to be involved and be part of the change, which we just find encourages excitement and engagement and creativity. And then solutions are co-created, tested, and then everyone's accountable and everyone can celebrate in the success and or learn together in the failure. So both of those outcomes are equally useful in working in that safe environment. And we all know that culture can be the reason why innovation and digital transformation projects fail. So we've been leveraging the power of the declaration to drip feed that culture shift as people start to enjoy working in a more agile and exploratory and experimental way. And we're just finding the results are just so much better. So yes, that's everything we'll be doing in Cambridgeshire. So as I say, I'm Kat Sexton. If you would like to talk to me or ask me any questions, I'm more than happy. And if you'd like to read any more about what we've been doing, the website address is there. We do blog about our projects so that we can share the learning. So thank you.
Thank you, Kat. So we've got some questions for you, and so I'm just gonna read them out to you. And I'm sorry to kind of Jack and Neil on missing your questions earlier for Simon. There's about a 10 to 20 second lag, but I'll help answer those after the council showcases. So first question for you, Kat. What's your biggest challenge been during COVID?
Biggest challenge was, I suppose, within the county council hub, we were very clear about kind of what our role was looking after the shielded population, but I think it was kind of trying to make that really joined up approach with all of the district councils as well, to really make sure that we were all doing kind of our roles and responsibilities. So there were a lot of people working in the hub, making sure that we had that constant communication with all the other partners, coordinating all of that work. But I think it really worked, the fact that actually we were going into the office, we were having daily meetings twice a day, and that just really worked. And I think we've learned so much about it. I mean, it was all challenging, but we kind of just saw it in a really positive way, because we just acted, and we did things. We were checking with people to see if it worked, and but just being really proactive with people. So it was challenging, but also really rewarding.
And what would your advice be for other councils looking to sign local digital declaration and work in line with the principles?
I think it is really important to have that senior leadership buy-in, and I think if you can really understand how the declaration can benefit you and the principles can benefit you, and really get your senior leadership buy-in, then I think that will really help. But certainly from my experience, it's not something that happens overnight, and the way that we did it was just by getting some early adopters, working with teams that were really open to this way of working, getting some quick wins, applying for funding bids, really then talking about the work that we're doing, showcasing it, generating that excitement from a grassroots level. And then we found that, like I say, it kind of just starts flowing out. People start reading what you've done, they start hearing about what you do, and it's amazing that you find these sort of people all over the organisation who are already thinking like this, but are finding it difficult to really make a difference because they're kind of on their own in their sort of service. So what I try to do is sort of collect these people from around the organisation, and then together we can sort of create a bit of a movement, which is kind of how it's been working for me.
Thank you. And another question for you. What is the size of your team across the shared service?
Well, actually, there's only about 25 of us, and that's sort of Scrum Masters, designers, user researchers, people in leadership. Yeah, we're actually not a very big team at all. Yeah, and developers, obviously, we've got lots of developers who are actually creating these products.
Thank you. And another question, what aspect of digital do you think isn't being used to its full potential?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think probably it's the thing is with me is I'm the lead designer, so I talk much more about the design aspect of digital rather than technology. But I think probably there are some gaps in the design aspect, and but I think that's where the declaration as well can really help, because the courses that are run on user research, on service design, on the business analysis, if people really start understanding that aspect, then the rest does sort of fall into place, in my personal opinion.
Thank you, Kat. I think that's all the questions for you, so thank you very much for telling your story.
Thank you.
So up next, we have Paul Fleming, who is the Director of Digital Business Change from Blackburn with Darwen Council. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Mayan, and thanks for having me today. It's a real pleasure, privilege to be able to present to you some of our approaches and some of our experiences over the last few months. I'll talk about some of our approaches, I'll talk about some of the challenges that we've had, and I'll finish with some outcomes. So what I'll start with, though, is a backdrop around Blackburn with Darwen. And if you hadn't heard of Blackburn with Darwen, you've certainly heard of them now, because we're top of the league with the COVID rates in the country, and that's not a league that you want to be top of the table at, believe me. But we're a unitary authority, about 150,000 population. over two northwestern towns, Blackburn and Darwen, and we're sort of in the middle of Preston and Manchester. We've got a very ethnically diverse and young population, and we've got some real unique deprivation challenges. So if you look at child deprivation across the country, of the 5 most challenged wards, 3 are in London and the other 2 are in Blackburn and Darwen, and we have the most challenged ward in the country from a child deprivation perspective. So some real unique challenges for us to go at here. The council is about 2,500 staff, and I have a team of about 140 people, which is going to soon grow post these next couple of months as we get past these challenges that we've got at the moment. So when I came in 2 years ago, we had a digital strategy in place. We had a new directorate, and my post was a new post as a director of digital and business change, which is it's good, and it's been quite enviable, certainly with our partners, to have someone at the sort of management board level, with that kind of remit and that kind of influence, and that's really helped us. When I came in, I felt we had a bit of a standing start with digital. We had some really good building blocks. We had some good technologies in there. But looking at that digital strategy, I didn't see how we translated that into any sort of plan when I came in. So that's been our task over the last couple of years. When we signed up to the declaration in February 2019, we had political and management board commitment. So the leader of the council, our exec member, political member, were fully behind that. We presented to the press, which was a real signal to the public and our partners around what we were doing. And it created a lot of conversation locally across NHS partners, which is where I'd come from, NHS England at the time. It created a new conversation around digital. So when we signed up, I kind of had the feeling that we'd sign up and this would change our culture, but it quickly became apparent that signing up alone, it doesn't change the culture. And despite many briefings that I led and talks I had with multiple managers, different communications, it wasn't landing as quickly as I'd like it. And what we then did was really take advantage of the free training that GDS offered through the declaration, the training credits, and we use those training credits for Agile for Teams, and it really began to change the game for us. So I would say a training-led approach was key. I delegated all that to the team, and in previous worlds I'd probably have tried to keep a real handle on how we move that training through the organization, but I said to the team, here's the credits, go away, train our teams and create a movement. And it was really interesting. We trained our directorate, predominantly the IT teams first, with project teams, and they started with an agile office redesign project. So they actually changed the way the office looked and felt. And I said, yeah, there's a bit of a budget. You make it look how you want it to look, and create a place where you want to work. And we're actually moving out of that office next year. So it was a bit of a step to say, right, let's redesign our office for the short term. But I wanted to create a thriving and creative place for them. And it started to engage the team. And another way we really pushed this out through the organisation was to start to apply it to the different projects we're working on. So all the things we'd learned through Agile for Teams, we applied to our digital customer projects, our Office 365 projects. Anything that we were doing then went with these agile rules. Now that then started to spread it through the business, and we started to get people coming forward. We trained up different project teams who were multidisciplinary, included like social care, so social workers and social work leaders, environment managers and leaders, etc. So we started to permeate the business. We got them on we did train a trainer, I should say. We had the GDS training, but we then trained the trainer, and we started rolling out this through the organisation. So to date, we've probably trained about 250, 300 people or more with some of those core skills, and we've led many other taster sessions as well. So the spread of this methodology has been pretty rapid through the business. We ran a lot of agile sessions, like I've said. So the full directorate, that when I got the full directorate together this January, we put them all through an agile taster session, and that was probably good timing going into COVID. And then we also tied it in with Wellbeing Month. So right across the council, you could sign up for these sort of agile sessions, and that increased that spread. Another element of this is governance. So we really looked at our governance around digital. We'd had many digital boards over the years, but we created a design authority, a digital design authority that had a clear link to management board. So heads of service from around the business formed that design authority, and that started to really open up different types of strategic discussions. We also had a peer review by the LGA that really told us to have transformation as one piece across the council. So as part of that design authority, workforce is really part of it. It's not just digital, it's the whole design, that whole transformational design. And then I think one of the real key things of getting this spread through our business has been demonstrating through success. So, you know, listening to Kat, it's really nice listening to Kat's work in Cambridgeshire. And when I look at her team, I see my team, and that's a real plus for this declaration. But when we went into COVID, we did a lot of the same things. We stood up a help hub in a few days with digital forms that then moved into full case management, business support forms, you know, for business grants. Business intelligence became huge. We had no business intelligence team, never mind a data insights team and forecasting team before COVID. They were spread around the business, and straight away we were able to agile project manage, setting up BI dashboards for the management team and extended leadership, and rolling out Teams. Of course, you know, we're on Teams now, and this is the technology that we're using for our full councils. We were able to set that up very quickly using these sort of designs and methodologies. And bringing you right up to date with this week, and the reason I've not got slides is that we are right in the thick of it with COVID and working with Public Health England as an intervention site. We're top of the country in rates of infection. So we're now working with Public Health England on agile methods of how to bring test and trace into the borough. It's taken up my full-time job at the moment. But what Public Health England have told us is that the methods that we're using are really valuable to them, and we're now going to work with other areas, helping places like Luton, alongside Leicester. So we're starting to push this out to partners both nationally as well as locally. And I think, you know, when you use that language with the board, when they see those successes that translate into action from the board, then they can see that these methods work. Just a few areas that we've had challenges in, I would say briefly. It's been hard to win over our technical staff, and I've had to really adapt the way we look at sort of agile and the declaration with our digital teams and turn that into a DevOps conversation. So it's DevOps approaches, that is a much more tailored approach for the technical teams. I also think managing up, it needs a culture of trust and support. So agile for me, it requires, and all the declaration principles, it requires a real trust and a distributed leadership model for it to work. So when we're doing sprints, and it might be me as the person with the requirements or a different product owner, you've got to be able to manage up and tell a director or head of service, actually those requirements, they're not in this sprint, we're getting a minimum viable product. And our council wasn't set up with that culture. It was set up very top down, which was a real eye-opener to me. Everything flowed up to me for a decision. So I had to start engendering a different type of culture of this trust, but that's really essential for this to work. And then sharing and collaboration, obviously that's at the heart of everything that the declaration does, and it's so valuable. But it needs permission. If you're going to collaborate and take ideas from other places, it used to be, I'll steal the ideas from somewhere else and I won't waste time recreating things, and that made some sense. But it needs to be the norm, and it needs permission. So I think this gives a great anchor and an overarching arm around you to say, yeah, collaboration is good. It's what we need. And if we was to recommend a book, there's a book called A Bigger Prize by Margaret Heffernan, which is all about removing competition and increasing innovation and creativity. But what all that means and what it's come together with is some outcomes that I'd just like to briefly talk on. So where's this led us to in the 2 years I've been here and whatever the 16 months we've been signed up? It feels like a different directorate, and we've got inroads right across the business to a set of change agents who are really embracing this. Our structure looks different. We've got design roles, senior design roles, junior design roles, developers working in different ways, and DevOps approaches in technology. And part of my directorate is business support, like business operations, so all the admin really for the council. I have 70 odd staff in that area, and we're starting to move that administration into more of a transformational change, an agile team, a design team. So my vision going forward is like take away some of the lower banded roles and upskill those people and give them higher grades, and let's have a design-led organisation. That is really my goal. We've got a customer panel now. There's about 50 residents on the customer panel, and that's translating into better products. When we do our through COVID, we've done like things like a waste and recycling centre app to book book appointments at your tip, and we've gone through so many iterations of that, and it needs the customer panel to help us with that. And when we get complaints through now on the forms and the systems, we're turning those complaints into members on the customer panel, and that's working really well for us. And I think above all, I've heard the words imagination come from the minister today, and that really makes me happy. When I left the NHS, I was in a senior role in a national team, and I was told that we weren't creative, and that really stuck with me. And I thought, no, we've got to be creative, and it's great to hear this. And I think what this opens up, it opens up to us to be imaginative, to be creative. They're the skills we need going forward. And my team seem happier, they seem more creative, and they seem healthier because of it. And that ultimately will lead to better outcomes for residents of the borough, and that's what we're about here. So that's it for me, and I'll take any questions if there's time. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. A couple of questions for yourself. First one is that it looks like you're back in the office. Is this starting to happen across your councils?
It's a good question. I am in the office in Blackburn. It could be classed as a dangerous place to be. I'm the only one of my team in the office, apart from some people who are getting tablets ready for people. We have a total flexible working across my directorate, but as a director, I need to be in a building in case there's an issue. That's why I'm here.
Thank you. And also, if you have more questions for Paul, please use the Q&A function again. Next question for you. How are you keeping the culture change going, given that all face-to-face training for Agiles had to stop? Are you keeping it going online? What other tools are you using?
It's a good question. Now, on the training, we've kind of stepped that down a little bit. I suppose through COVID, we've just had to move very quickly. So I'd say the culture's probably increased by the way we're working. So it's been really refreshing that I've been able to touch many parts of the business more than I could before, and my teams have. So actually the agile ways and these ways through the declaration are being spread much more quickly by the doing rather than the training, but we'll get back to that. We are doing some interventions where needed, and we had a request from the NHS. So I'd tried to push agile into the NHS, but they had their own sort of national NHS provider methods. But in COVID, they asked us how we were working with agile, so that was great, and we put our lead trainer over to the NHS for a bit on that.
That's great, kudos. So another question, and I'm not sure whether this was for Kat or for Paul, but I'll ask you anyway. Do you have any plans or projects to use 5G enabled technology?
Got ideas, we've got visions. So I think at the moment our priorities have been really made clear. Before COVID, I had all sorts of different projects around, smart towns, connected towns, like many people have. But that's had to go on the back burner through COVID, and we've really crystallized what the priorities are, and I think that's been helpful. So got ideas, got a vision, probably need to commission some work around that because I probably don't have the resources or the skills to take that agenda forward. But we've had plenty of discussions with IoT suppliers and trying to work across the different directorates with other directors around what that vision is. So yeah, a bit of a holding position on that.
And this is kind of like a follow-on question from being in the building. So Neil's kind of asked, do you really need to be in the building to solve a problem or a crisis?
No, it's a bit of a bone of contention that I think if there's a physical issue in the building, so if there's a health and safety issue ultimately, or a fire, then having directors, we've got a director in each of the 3 main buildings. We've questioned that, but we've not questioned it too much. We've kind of had to get on with things. Fair
enough. And another question, do you think part of removing competition is encouraging healthy challenge?
Well, I think you can have healthy competition, and one of the interesting things for me with the declaration has been working in the open, which is one of the outcomes I didn't mention. We've got our blog and we work in the open, and we've had people approach us, which is amazing for me after reading other blogs and learning from others. But the blogs and the openness puts pressure on me to be more competitive, but in a healthy way. So I see other councils, pushing on with different technologies or different thinking. I think, right, why aren't we doing that? Can we do that? Should we be doing that? So I think there's a healthy competition there. But yeah, and I think when you work in the open, I think get the ideas out early doors. Don't get the ideas out when they're finished. So get the learning out, get the nitty gritty out, and then we can all kind of come up the same together.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. I think that's all the questions for you. Thank you very much for speaking today. Right, so up next we've got Matt Prosser, Chief Executive at Dorset Council and Solace Lead for Digital. Over to you, Matt.
Mayen, thank you very much for that introduction, and good afternoon. It's great to be here and joining in with the celebration of the Digital Declaration. It feels like a lifetime ago. I was sat in Camden Council's offices with Paul Maltby and Siobhan Coughlin and other colleagues discussing the final draft of the declaration and working out how we get this promoted and signed, and yet here we are just 2 years on with 220 signatories to it. And that was following Rishi Sunak's launch of the declaration at the then LGA conference, a physical conference. One of the things we've missed, I suppose, in the last 4 months. I wonder if its trajectory has moved as fast as the political career of the now Chancellor. Who knows? Perhaps we'll know at the end of this conference. For those who don't know me, I've got the privilege of being the national spokesperson for Solace on digital leadership. More about people than about tech, I always say. So go easy on the tech questions as a chief executive. But also in my day job, I am chief executive of one of the newest unitary councils in the country, having led the process to create the new Dorset Council that was created on the 1st of April 2019 with digital aspirations at its heart. Leadership in a digital age is really, really important to me, as I'm sure you both. And hearing that culture conversation today with Kat and Paul has been really excellent, because for me, as much as the declaration was about how we fix the plumbing and the infrastructure, it also needed to influence leaders to act and behave differently. And before I start, I therefore just want to publicly acknowledge the great work of my colleagues in the council and also our partners in the voluntary community sector in Dorset, who've stood up digital solutions throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and that lockdown period. The innovation has been truly outstanding. Next slide, please. So for us, the embedding that digital declaration is about designing services around the needs of people using them. We signed the declaration as a shadow Dorset Council, and it enabled us to embed that ambition for digital in the real thing. We wanted to enable the able. We knew from research that we've got lots of people with digital skills in our communities, but for whatever reason didn't want to access council services digitally. So we actually wanted to make sure we enable those people actually already using online skills first. And our core values, including designing around the needs of the users, really, really important. Not just a strategy of if you build it, they will come, but if you build it with the needs of the user, they will access it and get the very best benefits. And our people strategy highlighted the importance of digital skills. My senior team were recruited against digital skill sets for a 21st century organisation. Why, as I say to many of my colleague chief executives, why would I want to employ people in a 21st century organisation without 21st century skills and behaviours? But we also support our existing colleagues and staff members and councillors to gain new digital skills. And I'll speak a little bit about that later on. We set the councillors off at the start with a paperless approach. We were very clear when new councillors were standing for the elections of the new council that there would be a paperless approach, that they would be given the very best technology and helped to use that. We've got an executive advisory panel, that's a bit like a start and finish group, I guess, set up for digital and ICT, and it's chaired by the deputy leader, giving it high profile political leadership, which is really, really important. For me, the privilege of creating a new organisation was a chance to think about the structure, and therefore being able to create dedicated capacity for digital that includes service and content design roles. And I've separated digital and change from operational IT, so there's real clarity in the organisation. We've been adopting the Gov Digital Services Standards and a design-led approach to solving the right problems based on our user research and data. And we've also benefited from the free GDS training that's been available for user research and Agile. Really, really helpful. And as I said at the introduction, we've been able to design and stand up some solutions really quickly, particularly during this pandemic. It's removed for us one of those cultural pieces of baggage that says, can we do that? We absolutely can, and we know we can as an organisation. We can move at pace now. So we produce great website content and structure to get COVID messaging out quickly. We set up a digital skills agency. This was for colleagues whose work had been paused because of the COVID pandemic. So work in libraries, leisure centres, country parks, registration services. And we created a virtual network of these people and said, what are the skills you've got, not only in the jobs now, but from outside of the council jobs that you do. And then we put them together in a skills matching across the organisation, so that they could support our work around Community Shield or working physical work to reopen our household recycling centres when that came to it. A really great innovation and something we're going to protect and keep going as a rapid reaction force to solving problems. We created new models for our library click and collect service, business grants, 108 million distributed with a purely online approach. We're a little bit slower out the blocks than some colleague councils, but caught up because we had a purely digital process, so we're not double entering data. and also creating apps such as our EHCP, our Education and Healthcare Plan Process Checker, so that parents, when they submit for their EHCP, get a chance to actually track it on the app to see that they've submitted the right evidence, where it is in the process, and when the outcome's going to come out. Instead of what we had in the past was people phoning up every week to say, where's my EHCP? And that taking a member of staff off the process to actually answer the calls. So actually making a better outcome for our residents. Fixing the plumbing, we're looking at how we've moved to a component-based approach and have started the journey to using Notify and Pay. Small steps, but really great example. Notify is how you can quickly and easily use it to make instant savings. Small numbers there, £54,000, but actually some great ambition to use that. Moving on, for sharing information to support the vulnerable and target resources. We've got the Dorset Care Record is really making a difference to safeguarding vulnerable patients, and it says the usage has risen in June. Basically, the Dorset Intelligence and Insight Service is creating those Dorset Care Records, a partnership between the Council, the Clinical Commissioning Group in Dorset, our hospitals and the South West Ambulance Trust, to coordinate better care, to give clear and better decisions about care, to fulfil the tell us once mantra between all of those agencies, make sure we've got absolutely accurate records and basically give you as an individual a better understanding of your position in your care pathways. And then Community Shield is something really important, where we use the data that we got through COVID-19 to combine both our shielded lists and our community care lists and actually support the vulnerable throughout this process. We were able to make sure that we kept inclusion at the heart of that. We repurposed just under 300 laptops from the council and giving those to our children in the looked after care system who were most vulnerable and needed access during that time. And then we built on that with the access to the government laptops, using that data to ensure no one fell between the gaps between the Gov list and our local list. So moving on to an open culture and expecting digital ways of working. As I said, we recruit against digital skills and behaviours, and not just our new web manager, Neil Lawrence, who I know is listening, coming to us in October, but everybody coming across actually having to understand a little bit about their digital skills and behaviours as they join the organisation. Our behaviours are aimed at establishing a culture where digital can thrive. Our peer challenge last year focused on our digital workforce and transformation. As the slide says, we're working with Barnsley on local digital fund and income projection. We've got a robotics in care community of interest group, which are exploring the potential for us to support our residents with better technology. And we've got over 2,500 colleagues working from home using MS Teams to connect and collaborate. Many of those teams never having met each other and actually working incredibly effectively in that environment. And as Chief Executive, I've really benefited being able to dip in and out of all of the Teams groups to say hi, to thank people, to read the fantastic stories of the work that has been happening. And those leadership stories really important. We've set up Skype rooms to help the family, support the family court process so that people can still continue to get the right kind of outcomes, even though the courts were shut down. We're obviously using MS Teams, as well as we said, for webinars, for all of our virtual meetings for members, staff webinars, increasing connectivity and that feeling of inclusion, particularly for frontline staff who can't normally take time out during the day to join with a staff briefing. Actually, they can watch it online afterwards and still post up questions that we can answer in our FAQ section. We encourage experimentation. And currently we're leading a government-backed £6.7 million project to help shape the future of 5G services in the rural areas. We've got a national profile to this work alongside household names, including Vodafone, Microsoft and the RNLI. We're demonstrating how that new technology can enable business growth and new public service delivery models through pilots, not limited to agri-tech and aquaculture, we're really important on the coastline, but also how to increase visitors to sensitive coastal areas and also giving connected care to homes and to ambulances. Finally, a couple of last slides demonstrating that digital leadership and creating the right conditions. We've got 75 digital champions in the community. These are people who perhaps just retired, got great digital skills and just want to share that evangelically across our communities. And we've got 175 in the workplace. They're not just work colleagues, they're also elected members as well, supporting that growth within the elected members of councils. Really important. We're raising awareness of digital across Dorset through our networks and our podcasts, which are really great. And as I said, we provided laptops for vulnerable or disadvantaged children, really important at this time. And final slide from me is about Dorset's digital future. There's a lot to take in on this slide, and we started this by talking to our workforce, our residents and our businesses to develop our future together last year. And then more recently, last week, we held a digital conference in a virtual environment. Fascinating use of technology. It's the first time I've ever been at a virtual conference where somebody had the ability to drag someone off their table onto somebody else's. I was really fearful that somebody was going to pull me away in a virtual chair and stick me on another table, but it didn't happen. We're all far too polite still. So thanks for listening. We believe that digital is vital in Dorset, and the digital declaration has really helped us to accelerate that journey for us and for our residents, communities, businesses, staff and members together. Thanks very much, Mayan. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Matt. And it's so encouraging to see, especially at chief executive level, kind of support and approach that you've taken. First question from you, surprisingly from Neil Lawrence. How do we retain a focus on digital inclusion while moving forward?
Well, yeah, Neil, you'll get a chance to be a part of that, obviously, when you join us in October. So, the thing for me is actually remembering that whilst we focused on enabling the able to make sure that we've got the time to spend with those who are currently excluded. So we're then working with those groups in that margins between those who could become digitally included and giving them support. So we've got schemes to make sure that the physical infrastructure is better. So actually supporting increased takeover of broadband within the rural area. Making sure, as I say, with the digital champions, that they're actually supporting people. So once you've got your tech connected, how do you actually deal with it? And particularly for us in Dorset, we've got a slightly older population. So we're supporting that slightly older population who may be first-time users. But I have to say, there's nothing like, it wouldn't wish it on anybody, but a global pandemic to accelerate that use of digital technology.
Thank you. And the next question for you is, when you decided to roll out the special, the digital and technology roles, how did you go about doing this? Did you upskill your workforce, and how did you do that?
Okay, so we've been upskilling the workforce prior to the new councils being created and during, so using both tried and trusted technology and training methodology, but also using buddying systems. Really, really important to make sure that people have got the ability to just pair up with somebody else across the organisation. And there's no stupid question, just being able to ask that. And particularly during lockdown, the Teams groups and the Teams chat sites have been really, really important that we replicate in the virtual environment what we see in the real world. So encouraging teams just to have coffee and catch-ups, just talk about stuff and in it conversation about how did you do that in Teams, or how did you do that in this piece of application. So really important that we just encourage people to continue to talk. So training informally as important as formally.
And this is another question for you. So people are loving the yes we can attitude. Do you think to achieve this, do you need to create a culture where seniors ask for outcomes, not solutions? And how did you do that?
I certainly agree that it's about asking for outcomes and not just directly solutions. It's about people sharing in that solution. So I haven't done that. Well, as I said to you, one of the privileges of setting up a new council is you get to select your new leadership team. And as part of that process, really important that the design process was based around the kind of skills that we needed for the new organisation, not just the technical skills and the behaviours, but also the kind of cultural leadership that they were going to bring to the organisation. So I'm really grateful that I've got a fantastic senior leadership team who live the behaviours across the organisation.
Thank you. And next question: do you encourage your workforce to work in the open, and how do you do that?
I noticed that in the opens in inverted commas, so it depends what the classification is in the open, but yeah, absolutely, really do encourage there to be a sense of openness and people just sharing and looking for outcomes. This is not about waiting to the end of the line to look at the final product or the outcome. Actually encouraging people to share things at the start, because if you work in a business process with quality assurance, you don't want to check something when it falls off the end of the production line and see that actually it's not quite right. You want to be checking it all the way along. And that was a really important feature that our leader actually put forward at our peer review last year. We had a peer review within 6 months of being created as a council, and somebody said that's really early, and then he said no, it's not really early, it's really important, because actually we want to check that actually our journey is going in the right place. So I'm more than happy to encourage my workforce to work in the open and share as much as they can. Thank you.
Questions are coming thick and fast. How are you helping? How are you helping other chief execs to get digital and really get on board with this stuff?
So really important, obviously, my role in Solace, that's the Society of Local Authority Chief Executive and Senior Managers. Really important that we are continuing to help those chief executives in that who don't have the digital skills and knowledge to feel confident that they can. You know, you don't need lots of knowledge to do it. You can surround yourself with great people. That's what I'm doing. Well done, Neil. Thanks for coming again. Another plug. It's about bringing the right people in and creating the right environment. You know, if you, as I said in my opening introduction, push under the surface. And yeah, I know a bit about tech. I know a little bit about stuff, but you know, I surround myself with great people who can really drive that forwards. But helping other chief executives is just creating those opportunities for them to ask those questions. And I sit on several chief exec boards where I'm the kind of the digital sort of lead person to help them to access the right training or to find a mentor. I've got one of my colleague chief execs here has got a reverse mentoring. So he's got a young guy in the workforce, got really good tech skills, social media skills, and is helping this chief executive to reinvent himself in the 21st century.
Fantastic. And next question, what is something you think Dorset could do better in the future?
Wow. What is something you think Dorset could do? Oh, there's so much. We're a brand new authority. You know, we inherited 6 predecessor councils, and we've got so much to do in terms of improving the performance across the organisation. But you know, for me, what could we do better in the future is just continue our cultural journey of learning and being an open organisation and wanting to do the very best by our residents, communities, and businesses.
Thank you. And do you have any top tips for other leaders about how to lead well in the digital age?
Yeah, always be open to learning and be prepared to say, do you know what, I don't know what that is, and can you tell me a little bit more about it? You know, as chief executive, I certainly have not got all of the ideas and all of the answers, and I very much want to encourage people around me to feel open to be able to bring challenge, to be able to bring comment, and to be able to bring new ideas and solutions into the workplace, and that's something I definitely encourage.
Thank you. And last question, by introducing those different DDAT roles, did it involve a restructure, and how did you manage the people change?
So yes, it did involve a restructure, but it was a restructure as part of the process of creating the 2 new councils, as I said, and it was some honest conversations and some really honest conversations, particularly with some experienced individuals who we sat down and said, like the idea, like what you're seeking to do, but I don't think I've got the skills to do that. And I was really grateful for some honest conversations, which meant actually there was an opportunity for me to appoint one post internally, which was our head of ICT, and one person externally, which was our new corporate director for digital and change, and that's given us a perfect environment where you've got some great skills steeped in the knowledge of the predecessor organisations and all the technical issues, and you've got some new skills and ideas coming in, and they've meshed really well together.
Thank you so much, Matt. That's the last question for you.
Welcome.
Thank you. And so the next presenter we have next is Holly Ray, Head of Strategy and Design from Stockport Council. Over to you, Holly.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. And it's been, I was thinking earlier, it's always a bit of a double-edged sword going after other people's showcases, because you go, oh God, that's brilliant. Yeah, get loads of ideas. And also, am I going to be duplicating? What am I saying? But anyway, absolutely fantastic. It was so great to hear from Paul, Matt and Kat as well. And hopefully you'll see some common themes in some of the things that I'm going to talk about. So if I could just go on to the next slide, please. Yeah, fab, thank you. So yes, my name's Holly Ray. I am Head of Strategy and Design at Stockport Council. My team includes strategy, policy, community-based colleagues with skills across engagement, co-design, business analysis, delivery management, and a range of different design skills. And I, along with colleagues across data and tech services, jointly lead digital in Stockport. As Matt said a moment ago, I'm not techie either, but particularly passionate about about how we design with and for people, and I guess how we embed digital across all change and strategy development. And it's really about that readiness for the expectation and needs of our citizens now and for the future. And never has that been more demonstrated and more important than the last four or 5 months. This is in terms of Stockport and who we are and where we're at. In case you don't know us, we are one of 10 Greater Manchester local authorities up north. It's a bit drizzly here today, don't know if it is elsewhere. There's about 280,000 living in Stockport, and I guess the sort of challenge for us, sort of reflecting on Paul's comment earlier, is we've got a real mixed population across Stockport, some of the most kind of affluent areas in the country, and some of our kind of most deprived as well, facing significant kind of challenges around financial exclusion. And I guess that really presents us with a kind of well, not a challenge, but certainly a consideration in terms of how we address and how we approach digital in Stockport, and what that means for the borough of Stockport, not just the council. And I guess an important stat for us and a signifier of that is that whilst 87% of our population are comfortable and relatively confident with digital, 13% aren't. They've not accessed digital, don't feel comfortable with it, and that is something that I guess the pandemic over the last 4 or 5 months has really shone a light on, in terms of how incredibly important it is to make sure that we are designing in an inclusive way for all parts of our community. And I will be interested to see how that's shifted, and that's something we're certainly looking at in Stockport to understand better. So we signed the Digital Declaration back in 2018, and I think this discussion is really timely, and it's really timely to reflect upon it. And I was looking through the blog that we published at the time about why we signed it, and it was really for us about making that very public commitment, both to our residents, our partners, and I guess to colleagues across the sector as well, to commit to really designing and reimagining our services with people at the heart of that design. Recognising that many of our services have evolved, they've responded to the technical capabilities available at the time, legislation, and actually really to be kind of ready for the internet era, we really needed to really think about how people access support, what is it they need, and what is it we need to think about and design differently. I think it's that kind of commitment to collaborating with each other, about being smart and open with our innovation and working across local authorities. And as I said, sort of mentioned already, about being digital enabled and ready, reaching throughout our organisation and not just kind of tech for tech's sake. And as we've sort of said, all of these things sort of feel incredibly important now, if not more heightened, given the last few months in how we've come together in local areas, come together as a sector and responded to those kind of unprecedented circumstances. And I think I'll go through some of our learning over this journey, but also how that's stood us in good stead for the last sort of last four months or so. So we just move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So here's just a quick overview of our digital journey. We started as I guess a digital programme, very much kind of council focused and sort of internally focused originally, and as with many other colleagues who've spoken already, really focusing on getting the foundations right, whether that's the kind of technical foundations or the skills, the culture. We built reusable technical capabilities similar to those that Kat was sharing earlier on. Built kind of and designed new key corporate products like My Account, local directory, reviewed and revised our kind of website, launching that very much at the early kind of stages of our programme, we rolled out new remote working devices, built kind of integrated our data sets. And I guess those, and I do think it's really important and I think that's what's great about the declaration, is recognising that it is that journey. It is about getting the foundations right and building and continuing to grow and evolve. And I guess that's that our kind of sort of more recent focus has really been about redesigning how we work, looking at redesign of services, looking at where we can improve outcomes, be more efficient as well. Looking at tech-enabled care, rolling out our Digital Inclusion Alliance, which I'll touch upon in a moment, in a bit later as well. And I guess more recently, our kind of response to COVID, like many other colleagues have touched upon, that's really involved looking at kind of much more kind of expanded and rolling out of cloud-based working and remote working, virtual collaboration. How do we design new services and designing new services with our voluntary community sector, with our workforce, with businesses, and creating kind of, it's been sort of transformation at speed with new digitally enabled services and investing and strengthening our infrastructure to ensure that we're more robust going forward. And if we just go on to the next slide, because what I'm going to touch upon, I guess, is a little bit of a couple of areas really that are just in terms of how we've approached digital in Stockport, and how the declaration has enabled that, or sort of shaped our approach. And I think what excited us most about the declaration, and certainly what excites me the most about how we, sort of working differently and working in and thinking for the future, is genuinely about how we design with and for people, and as I said, reimagining with people the future of public services. We've been really kind of looking at how we can open up those conversations, making sure we're having more habitual conversations, building new skills and approaches to designing with people. So whether that's kind of the prospective kind of foster parents that are up there on our screen, who helped, along with other kind of prospective foster parents in Stockport, help look at how we design and grow our kind of foster care community, recognising that having a stable and secure home was really important for us. It was a really important kind of outcome that we wanted to address in Stockport, as I'm sure with many others. And on a really kind of core level, looking at what mattered to them when they were going through that process, looking at the questions that they asked, looking at how we were responding, how do we make sure our digital process was clearer, how did we make sure that linked in with some of the training and advice and guidance and peer support that was available and out there. And I guess, other examples there, we looked at how, designing our kind of directorate with local kind of self-identified members of our community who wanted to help us go on that journey to improve it and design a better product. And more recently in our COVID response, working with our food banks to design new kind of digital processes and customer journeys for people to access support through the food bank. And their support in designing that has been invaluable, both in terms of their kind of ownership of that process, but also the quality of the feedback and the better quality design that we've come out with as a result of their input. We've been working with colleagues as well, and you can see on the screen the Family Context and Children's Services, which was one of our kind of successfully funded projects from the local digital fund, and that was working with social workers to help us understand how we could bring together the story of kind of children and young people so that they could better support families, and that was working with our fantastic colleagues in Leeds as well as others to design that. And I guess also trying to understand the experience of people. The picture that is there on your right hand side, which is very busy and probably deliberately so, and you can see a bit more in the blog that we've done about it, was the kind of the feedback from a family of their experience of accessing kind of services and support, and that you can see the range of different services that are wrapped around them. And that's something, I guess, about for us to reflect and work with families and individuals about how we better join up and better design with them. And I guess finally, in terms of designing for, we launched our Digital Inclusion Alliance, working with local community organisations and businesses to develop digital skills and confidence. We've trained over 8,000 local digital champions, and they have been absolutely fantastic during this kind of period as well. Having, supporting one-to-one kind of digital skills courses, as well as supporting the voluntary and community sector as they move some of their support online and into remote working as well. And I think what's fantastic for us and what's really important for us and special about our Digital Inclusion Alliance is that is something we're genuinely doing jointly with local community organisations that we are a part of and as an equal partner. So if we just move on to the next slide. And as I say, I guess that really does lead on to, as others have said, really look at how we collaborate to innovate. That's collaborating with other local authorities. I've mentioned Leeds, but we've also worked really closely with Essex. Don't know if there's any colleagues on this call from Essex, but that learning and collaboration has genuinely been two ways. Working on sharing our kind of platform around our website, but also sharing learning around design. working closely with our colleagues across GM, with the Combined Authority, Manchester and Wigan, and we've run a number of successfully funded kind of local digital funded projects, which are kind of, you can see, squeezed onto the side of this slide on the right hand side, and that's included looking at how we join up children's services data, Stockport Family Context Project, as I've already mentioned, as well as working with GM colleagues about information sharing as well. But I think I guess for me that kind of collaboration is so incredibly important, because I think, you know, it's both getting the ideas and ideas from other people, but it is about how we're smart with the time and the resources and the ideas that we've got, and our kind of collaboration with our communities and residents, with GDS and with the local digital team have been really important over this entire period. So if we just move on to the next slide. And I guess throughout this whole period, you know, really focusing on growing our skills and experience, and like the speakers before me mentioned, you know, we've developed and brought in new skills into our organisation, so new skills around design and business analysis and delivery management, for example, product ownership. We've accessed some of the training as well that's been available, which has been really invaluable in terms of being able to broaden those skill sets, but also I guess that access to a wider community as well, access to Slack channels for people to connect and communicate and share skills, but also to develop communities of practice that go beyond our immediate organisation and are genuinely kind of national kind of communities of practice. And the sort of training we've accessed has been around kind of entry-level user experience and service design, digital leadership sessions as well, which our some of our senior councillors and senior leaders have attended, agile teams training, and looking at how we run similar sessions within our organisation. And I guess for me, and I think it touches on kind of Matt's point earlier, it has really been about embedding a culture of coaching and learning, you know, sharing and spreading skills through lunch and learns, pair writing, and I guess learning by doing as well. You know, finding those interested and excited people and supporting them to continue to be excited and to have the skills to apply it in their own area. So we just go on to the next slide. Thank you. And you know, we have been working out in the open. We've got a blog sharing our journey. We've had open days and meetups, and you know, leading by example through physical stand-ups, which you can see on the previous to COVID, but also those have now moved to open virtual stand-ups, which are sit-downs, but virtual meetings, again sharing kind of learning, and that commitment to transparency and openness. And as the Minister said at the beginning, this is really about permeating across how we work and really kind of demonstrating a kind of a new organisational culture for the future. So we just go on to the next slide, which I think I'll make my final slide, and just because I know I'm running out of time, and I guess really this has enabled us, and I guess has been about readying and enabling us to respond. And like many others on this call, this has been about stepping up new digital services at speed, transformation at speed, new content on our website, and never has kind of content design, you know, it's been so incredibly important, but spinning up new services, reshaping our workforce, working in more kind of remote but connected environments. Digital champions that's been supporting us during this entire period, both with the community and with the sectors I've already mentioned, and you know, building out kind of webinars around readiness for COVID, readiness for different ways of working, which have really been about supporting our communities to respond and to live and to connect during this incredibly difficult time. So I think those were the main points I was going to say, and it was more just a couple of points for the future, which I think we'll come on to anyway in the later part of this discussion, won't we? So thank you.
Thanks, Holly. I just have a couple of questions for you. What is something you want to take forward as a result of how you've responded to COVID?
I think the thing for me that's been really exciting in terms of how we've responded has been, and we've had good relationships across our communities and across our organisation, but it's how we continue to nurture that collaboration and co-design. So that's the thing I really want to see kind of going forward. I think the way that people have come together to share and to innovate and to respond has been absolutely inspiring. It's been incredible, and I think for me it's how do we maintain that ongoing collaboration, which in some ways has been easier in a remote environment because it's easy for people to dial in, to check in, to put a chat, respond through Teams or however, but maintaining that as a really core principle of how we work and how we change going forward, I think it's really important for myself.
Thank you. And how do you promote the declaration internally?
So we've obviously promoted via our blog. It's, you know, we're open about kind of having shared the declaration. It was we at the time of sharing it, signing it, sorry, we shared that with elected members and with colleagues in the council. I think what we've been doing since then has really been about embedding the principles and linking back to the principles that are embedded within the declaration. So I guess living the declaration and how we've been responding.
Thank you. And how are you continuing to work with your community and other councils in this new COVID world?
So with our communities, a couple of different ways. So we have had at the beginning 3 times a week, now twice a week, virtual forums with members of our voluntary and community sector, where we've been sharing information, collaborating, and I guess having spin out kind of meetings and virtual meetings. And that's included code, you know, and that's really where our coronavirus kind of support hub emerged from, was that collaboration, virtual collaboration. We've done the same with our mutual aid networks and those mutual aid networks who've been keen to collaborate in that sort of way. And I guess what we've also been exploring is looking at how we continue to do kind of user experience testing in a virtual manner kind of going forward. But we've been using Teams, we've been using new different software like Miro boards, which have been really helpful in helping us design together kind of during this time. And with internally within our workforce, like a couple of colleagues already spoke about, you know, continuing to use our kind of Teams chats and functions to kind of create safe and shared spaces for people to check in and to collaborate. So all been out in the open, but through regular contact. And I was looking at something recently, and I do think there's some learning here for us as a local authority about how we learn from organisations that are have been remote working by design, and, you know, and that is looking at how we almost over communicate. What's the different ways of practice? How do we make sure we don't just move to millions of emails or millions of Teams chats, but use the communication tools that we've got effectively? I wouldn't say we've nailed that one, but that's something certainly I think we need to learn from in terms of how we continue to connect.
Thank you. And next question of how do you get permission to collaborate with so many different councils and people?
It's an interesting question around permission, isn't it? I think I've not seen permission for us to collaborate with other councils as being a particular issue for us over the certainly not over the past couple of years. I think that's really about I mean, we, as working as part of Greater Manchester, we collaborate closely anyway, and I think it's really about what collaboration has meant for us. But I guess, you know, our leadership is really bought in and close to our digital journey, leading our digital journey at kind of at a council leader level to our chief executive, recognising that is a way that we can be smart with our resources and our time as well. And in terms of with our communities, and I guess culturally in some areas, kind of engaging early and in a different way is always going to take a little bit more time. There are different kind of parts of our organisation that are further on that journey than others, and that's not a criticism, that's just a reflection of the different types of relationships that we've had with our communities. And for me, that is just about demonstrating the value of that early collaboration, and I think that's really what we've been focusing on doing.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time, so I'm gonna move on. Thank you again, all of our fantastic speakers, Kat, Paul, Matt, and Holly. It's been so great hearing your story and all the different ways that you've lived the decoration. So now we're going to move on to the next bit about maximizing the potential of the decoration. So you heard in Simon's speech, he said that he wants us to be advocates. He wants you to be advocates at your council and for people to be ambitious, innovative, and bold. So with that in mind, we want to kind of hear from you how we can help you further champion the principles of the local digital mission and also get your ideas and opinions to shape its next phase of the decoration so that we can maximize the potential and recommit to the principles. So we're going to start off with today just 3 easy questions to get ideas from you, and then we'll be having a more deep dive kind of session with you. So Sheldon has kind of popped in the first question. Next slide, Galjan, thanks. For what's one small action you can do at your council to recommit to the local digital decoration? So pop your ideas and thoughts into the Q&A, and I'll read out a couple of those. So we'll give people 2 minutes to do that. So I'm going to read them as they kind of come in, but by all means, keep on typing. So start the conversation up again, maybe an intranet post. Also revisit and have senior leaders endorse the decoration. Write a blog about what I'm doing. And keep on typing your ideas and thoughts. We're gonna, one from Gavin, write open source, open standards and open data into procurement requirements. Fantastic. And while you're typing, because there's a 10 to 20 second lag, I will move the slide on to the next question, please. So what's one bigger long-term action you can do to recommit to the local digital decoration? Pop your ideas and thoughts into Q&A. So we've got one that says focus on developing design skills across the whole council, growing capability. That's a great idea. Any more? And another suggestion of more networking and skills development. And if you're not aware of it, please sign up to the Local Gov Digital Slack. A lot of people ask questions. A lot of informal networking happens through that Slack channel, and it's a great way to meet different people all across the country. And we've got another one, explain to in-house comms team that open working includes Twitter. And the next one is embed digital into the recovery and rest plans for the council. Commit to a design team and invest in skills and capability. And webinar hosted for councils to attend to set the scene and framework as a refresh for some that haven't really taken up the opportunities. It's a great suggestion. And reinforce across the organization so that everyone understands decoration, what digital means. Absolutely. And help identify gaps towards meeting the local digital decoration. And so while you're typing, we'll move on to the last question, Kaljahan. What do you need to further embed the local digital decoration at your council? What are the barriers? Couple more have come through. Actually start buying open solutions, be brave and replace legacy. Sharing at an earlier stage. And it's important that in-house procurement teams are aware of the digital marketplace. Absolutely, and we encourage our funded projects to use that route whenever they can as well. So 1 more minute for what do you need to further embed the decoration and what are the barriers? So one barrier shared is sharing the benefits internally. Buy-in is still quite challenging. And then another one is too few CEOs are as awesome as Matt. Senior leadership in finance, resources, and CEOs all need to be helped to understand internet age in local government. Thank you. We've got another one before we kind of wrap up. Having a viable alternative to the legacy stuff and software that is known. Right, thank you everyone for your ideas. If you're still typing, please go ahead and we'll continue to collect those. So next slide, Galjan, please. So in terms of next steps, and next slide again, Galjan. So as I was saying before, we've got the backing of our minister, so we're really kind of keen to get your ideas on how we can make and embed the decoration in your council and make it easier for you. So some great ideas already being shared. So we're going to organize and facilitate follow-on sessions But again, from these questions, if we can prompt you to start thinking about what do you want and need next from the decoration, how do we measure its impact, not only for our program, for your council. So there was a question about making that business case for collaboration. How do we help you do that? And also in terms of how do we further embed this within your local authority, and how we can help collaborate and share those best practices and those amazing stories that we heard from today, and help amplify the great work that everyone's been doing. So look out for those sessions via like our Twitter as well as our newsletter. We'll get those organized really soon. So that's it from us. Next slide, Gajahan. I mean, there's still time to share your story with us. So we're going to write a wrap-up blog by end of this week. So if you haven't done so already, please share your stories with us. And you can do that via email at events@localdigital.gov.uk. And we'll include that in our wrap-up blog. And we want to, again, to amplify all the amazing work that you've been doing in the last 2 years of the decoration. And next slide, Gajahan. So lastly, thank you again for coming today. It's been a fantastic session. I've loved hearing about all the different stories from our 4 presenters, and I hope you've enjoyed the session as well. And we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.